In a world driven by speed and automation, the Seagull TLR offers a return to intentional image making. It's an analog tool that invites photographers to slow down into the craft of artful storytelling. And I was lucky enough to receive this TLR from my father-in-law. This particular camera is over 60 years old, and it's been on my shelf for quite some time, and I haven't really pulled it out yet to play with it until most recently. And I went to my local camera shop and I purchased Ilford, 3 rolls of Ilford HP5 Plus 400 ISO. And I have to say, using this camera is actually been quite pleasurable, quite dreamy actually, because on it there's no digital buttons at all whatsoever on this camera. It is fully analog. You actually have to know things like your shutter speed and your aperture and your ISO with your film, because it is a film camera, and knowing how to use it. And I got the 3 rolls, but I haven't actually taken them in to my local camera shop to get them developed. So there'll be a second part coming in this video where I can show you those results. But let me tell you some interesting things about the Seagull TLR. The Seagull TLR Twins Lens Reflex camera is a medium format film camera produced in China, primarily from the 1950s onwards. Modeled after the classic Rolex design, it features 2 lenses, one for viewing and one for capturing the image, offering a waist-level viewing and a square 6x6 format on a 120 film. Manufactured by Shanghai Seagull Camera Co., it became one of the few TLRs mass-produced in China, gaining popularity due to its affordability and durable build. The Seagull and its variations are the most recognized models often used by students, hobbyists, and street photographers for their vintage aesthetic and dreamy soft image quality. During the Cultural Revolution, Seagull cameras were among the only photography tools accessible in China, making them integral to visual documentation of that era. While not widely adopted by Western professional photographers, the Seagull TLR found a place in the hands of independent artists, documentary photographers, and experimental photographers worldwide, especially those drawn to alternative processes or retro gear aesthetics. Though not as reverent as the Rolleiflex, the Seagull TLR has carved out a cult following and remains a beloved tool among film photography enthusiasts, vintage collectors, and creative storytellers. When this camera, like I said, it came from my father-in-law. He actually gifted this to me, and it came in its original leather case, as you can see, with a strap. And it is waist level, so you actually have to flick up the viewfinder in order to look down to actually see your image. And like I said, there's no digital buttons on it at all. But the thing that I really, really enjoyed with using this camera was that I had to actually take my time to really slow down and really think about the types of images that I was hoping to get from it and that I wanted to actually create. You can't actually take close-ups of using this camera. You have to stand, like half a meter away in order to capture your subject. But it is so quiet to use. Like, if I clock the shutter for you, that's how quiet it is. It is ultra, ultra quiet. And if the 3 films that I had actually will be putting in to get developed, if they turn out quite dreamy and quite beautiful, as I'm expecting that they are to be, then I can see me using this camera out in the field to do some really quiet, reverend type, personal street photography sessions and photo shoots, like going out on a Sunday and just walking the streets and just, taking a moment to capture something really, really beautiful and really almost very much storytelling like in the images. Like I said, I'm really excited that it's actually 6x6 format in the prints and not, the 4x6, which is what we're all currently used to and getting. I remember seeing 6x6 images in my grandmother's big box of photos, which you may have heard before me tell you about. And I remember falling deeply, deeply in love with those photos. They were black and white, and they were just dreamy, just ethereal, just, transporting you back to a different time of a different era. And it was really storytelling at its best. And I think that's why I picked up this camera and actually tested it out on the weekend with the 3 rolls of film. Some challenges you may expect with the Seagull is because the viewing lens is separate from the taking lens, close-up shots can be slightly misaligned. Like I said, you can't stand really close to your subjects. It's not a macro lens or a macro camera. You actually have to stand back a little bit of a distance in order to get everything in the frame and in a clear shot. It's not snappy like most cameras. The timing can be a little bit tricky for when you're moving subjects, and it's an older camera, so some Seagulls may have a sticky shutter, inaccurate speeds, or light leaks, especially if not serviced. This one is actually in almost mint condition. The leatherette is coming up a little bit in some of the areas, but it's almost like it was actually just purchased out of the shop. It's like it's never been actually used much, which is, like I said, it's very pristine. There's no dents on it. There's no scratches. The viewfinder is very, very clear. Once the camera's in there, it actually locks it really well. And on the 120 film, I got 12 shots per roll, which is exciting. And I used it both indoors using a light meter and outdoors with no light meter, with the simple fact of testing to see what those photos would actually look like. And like I said, there will be a part 2 for this video, so I can actually show you those results, because I'm really, really excited, and I'm really hoping and praying that they do turn out really well. So how much could you be expected to pay for one of these little cameras? Like I said, I was very lucky. I was gifted this camera. It is in mint condition. The film take-up spools work brilliantly. The shutter speed as well as the aperture also work beautifully as well. But if you were going to go and buy one on Marketplace or on eBay or something like that, it will vary on the model of the camera, because they do come in various models, the condition and the seller. And usually for vintage models, it's anywhere between $100 to $350. That's Australian prices, by the way. But a couple of things to consider when you are looking at purchasing secondhand cameras, because you want to know that really assess the camera's condition, verify the seller's credibility, and if possible, request sample photos taken with the camera to ensure its functionality. And if I was going to purchase my first TLR, I would definitely recommend one of these, because your rollies, although they're a beautiful camera, they are really, really expensive in some of the models to buy, whereas something like this will get you into medium format camera at that cheaper end of cameras. But you just need to be aware and make sure that it is in a good condition. The photos that it does take the photos, the viewfinder is actually pretty clear, and just taking caution when it's the same as when you're buying anything online, just making sure that everything's rigid-dig, it is a credible seller, and that the communications, particularly with the seller, you can tell with them, there's some telltale signs in there, usually with just spelling and grammar, but also with things like speed of replying, their ease of actually wanting to ask questions and inviting you to ask more questions is always a good sign as well. And I mean, yeah, I can't wait to see what the 6x6 photos will on this, particularly because I'm a black and white photography lover girl. I'm expecting that they'll be quite dreamy. Maybe some wouldn't have turned out, especially those without the light meter, but I'm hoping that a vast majority of them did, and I can't wait to show you them in the next video.